Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Bank of Montreal's 32nd Global Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference is brought to you by First Majestic Silver.
Hello, this is Paul Harris for Kitco at the 32nd BMO Global Metal and Mining and Critical Metals Conference in Hollywood in Florida. And I'm great pleasure to be joined this afternoon by George Salamis, President and CEO of Integra Resources. Good afternoon, George.
Oh, great to see you again.
Likewise. Now, you put out some very interesting news this morning. Integra Resources is going to merge with Millennial Precious Metals, a $100 million Canadian merger there, to create a junior gold developer of heap leach oxide gold in the Great Basin, which is Nevada and Idaho. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit more about this deal. What's the plan?
Well, it sort of all came together, Paul, sort of pushed by the notion of consolidation has to happen in our industry, right? There are far too many issuers out there. It's the ask that we get from those who write the checks from us is that you guys in that pre-development space especially have to start banding together to create this critical mass. They own too many issuers ultimately, right? So they would like to see two stories become one or three stories become one. And so on that basis, we said, okay, so beyond being a one asset company, which can sometimes be fraught with risks, as you know, what else is out there that could complement what we're doing at our DeLamar Gold Silver project in Idaho? So we spent the better part of the last year and a half sort of combing the Great Basin, as you mentioned, that's the focus, and looking for assets. And what we found was there are quite a number of 20 to 40,000 ounce a year heap leach projects in and amongst the juniors. There's a much smaller number of sort of 40 to 75, 40 to 80, and anything above that is extremely rare. And so after conducting a lot of due diligence on Millennial Precious, we found the perfect candidate and the perfect match in terms of their team blending into our team. It was the perfect fit ultimately.
And there's some quite impressive possibilities here. You're going to stay on the new co. It'll still be called Integra Resources. You'll be executive chair. Jason Kosic, who's currently president and CEO of Millennial, he's going to be president and CEO of Integra Resources, mainly looking after the capital market side of things. The fusion of the companies will give you a resource base of 6 million ounces and potential production outlook of 250,000 ounces a year.
That's the aiming mark for us, right? And that's the attraction, because we know of no other company out there in the pre-development space that can boast 6 million ounces, more than half of which is oxide heap leachable potential, with a pathway to a production level that will be very attractive, looking sort of 5 to 7 years out, targeting sort of 230 to 250,000 ounces a year. Not many of those out there now.
And open pit gold oxide heap leach, that's about as simple as it gets in terms of building and operating a mine, so that should be quite low cost gold production.
That's correct, and that's our mantra, right? That's going to be the sole focus of what Integra is going to be.
Okay, so a lot of the reasons behind the merger make a lot of sense, and those things have been in place for quite a while, and particularly some of the big funds wanting this consolidation. So why now? Why is the right moment for this to happen?
Well, I mean, we're all trading at our lows, right? The PNAV of both companies, relatively speaking, the same, 0.15. And so, that deal making on that basis is easy, because you don't need to have a discussion of who's going to pay whom a premium or a discount. So it's a merger of equals, no premium, no discount on either side. So that makes that conversation extremely easy. There's none of this, I'm worth more than you or you're worth more than us. And the market is telling you you're valued the same way. So then how do your assets complement our assets and vice versa? And there's another aspect to this too, which is we've got the DeLamar project, which is on its way into permitting. And we're into that kind of the downward swing of the Lassonde curve, for lack of a better word. And so while we're going through the next few years of permitting, Jason's projects in Idaho in Nevada, Wildcat and Mountain View, being great assets themselves, will also provide that exploration sizzle to hopefully backfill the bottom part of that Lassonde curve. That's the plan.
Okay, and thank you. You also announced a Concurrent $35 million Canadian financing, and that's a good financing in and of itself, but above and beyond that, you're bringing in quite an important strategic investor in the shape of Wheaton Precious Metals. Tell me a little bit about that and how that came to pass.
Yeah, so what can I say? So we were driving two different parts of the financing book to backstop this deal, if you were. So our existing shareholders have been very loyal to us and very loyal to on the MPM side. There's a lot of commonality there. And so convincing them was relatively, I'm not going to say easy, straightforward, let's just say. We knew that we would need some strategic input into this deal. And so we were basically running a bit of a strategic process. There were a few overtures, but Wheaton's was by far the best. Ultimately, they showed up with an offer to backstop up to 9.9% of the pro forma company on a fully financed basis, which is a big check, but more importantly, it's a big endorsement. These companies, these strategics, are doing a deep dive into your data room, into the technical merits of the project, and if you tick all of these boxes, well, all of a sudden you're not just believing all of the hype within your own head about your asset. You're having a third party like Wheaton Precious giving you that stamp of approval. It's great. And we know that they're going to be there to the finish line on record of decision on not just one project, but now three.
Okay. Now, George, in your career, you've been involved in quite a few M&A transactions. And I get the feeling here, given your comment earlier about the number of gold oxide projects in the Great Basin, I get the feeling that this isn't going to be the first. This is just the first step of a process that's going to continue. And I've seen that there's a number of assets out there with 1 or 2 million ounces of resource. So is the plan to agglomerate more and more of these into Integra?
Correct. But this is the starting point. And the starting point for us is we need to develop a currency to do that sort of thing. Tuck-ins of resources, maybe 1 to 2 million ounces, maybe that are kind of stranded, if you will, in some manner, whatever that might be. Start accumulating these assets and bring them in and create this bank of focus on oxide potentially heap leachable assets in the Great Basin. That's the plan.
Okay, and as you mentioned, DeLamar is going to be the flagship asset. It's the most advanced asset. What are the next steps for that project?
So we have this year, we've got two things on the go at DeLamar. We've got an updated resource estimate that's going to land sometime in June. We're drilling off those low-grade stockpiles, which we've told our shareholders a lot about. We've got a very high conviction rate that's going to add potentially another 1 million ounces. On a recovered basis, probably another 500,000 ounces to a mine plan. And that's really significant, right? Because our heap leach mine plan recovers about 1 million ounces of gold equivalent now. All of a sudden, you're adding 50% to that, where you can just imagine what that does to the economics. So that resource will be coming out in June. And then we have our mine plan of operations, which we deliver sometime in the fourth quarter of this year. And that's also important because it's a major de-risking step, right? It's that document of biblical proportion that you're basically handing to the BLM and to the state and saying, this is how we're going to build, operate, and remediate this mine. And it's an important document.
So that's the document that really kicks off the permitting process, yeah?
Yes, in earnest. Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay, and in Idaho, what permitting time are you sort of foreseeing there?
So the time frame we're looking at sort of post-submittal of the MPO is basically 1 year of kind of review period, if you will. And then you're into final EIS and final fees. So 2 years post and submittal of the MPO is essentially what we're looking at.
Okay, we're at the BMO Metals and Mining Conference, so an investor event. I imagine you had a lot of meetings this morning. What's the reaction? What's the response been?
Oh, to this deal has been great, especially amongst the fund managers who have been basically their response to us has been, look, we want everybody within our portfolio to start thinking this way, right? Choose a geography, focus on it, keep the message simple, but band together for crying out loud, because there's only so many checks that we can write to all of you.
Excellent. Well, congratulations once again. George Salamis, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
All the best.
And I'm Paul Harris. Stay tuned to BMO for more from the BMO Metals and Mining Conference.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the 32nd Global Metals, Mining, and Critical Minerals is brought to you by First Majestic Silver.